Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. If you like our videos, then please do help us by subscribing to the channel. Okay, we've got to that time of the month when it is this Q&A, and we will start off straight away with somebody who's saying they're enjoying the videos, and we did a video on plants that we've bred here, wanting to know they are trialled in the US and wonder whether they were able to get hold of them. So we have two plant breeders who two plant breeder agents who help us. One is Genesis, one is Plants for Europe, and they both have people who trial for them in the US. Now you can get hold of both of those and they will tell you where our plants are. We initially did Gaillardia oranges and lemons, and that was really successful. Then there was Gora, Rosy Jane, now Oenothera. And the latest one is Anemone frilly knickers, and this should be available in the US. It's certainly being grown by a lot of small plant people in the Netherlands, and they export, so it must be out there and available for you. Just look for those ones. Hi Rosie, we're entering winter soon. What do you say for protecting things like pineapple sage and rosemary, both on the north side of the house? So they're in a raised bed. So what I would suggest to you there is don't do too much pruning at this time of the year, just enough to tidy them up. You say you've got a fence so they don't get too much wind, that's good. Just make sure they're not going to rock about too much. You might just need to support bigger plants. Just a little temporary low stake might help. Give them a little bit of a mulch around, something like a dry mulch around the base of the plant, and then if we get really severe weather, then you will need to use horticultural fleece. You just put that over the top of the plants, peg it down, or use bricks or something like that to hold it down over the top of the plant. Don't do it too tight, just nicely over the top, and then when the frost has gone, remove the fleece. Don't leave it there all the time. Hi Rosie, we grow tomatoes and courgettes in pots over the summer. What's the best way to get rid of the spent compost? Well, that spent compost is still usable. It can go on a compost heap or a compost bin really well, or you can put it into your borders, put it at the back of the borders, just spread it out. The worms will do the rest by taking all that organic matter down into the soil and mixing it up. But don't just get rid of it. If you have a green bin with your recycling, then maybe it can go there and it can be used on a general composting site. This is someone who, I'm not going to read the whole thing out, they're loving the videos. They've got a variegated pink Bougainvillea, which it was a cutting from their mother's plant, so it's quite attached to it. And they're having problems overwintering plants inside. And I can see one of the reasons why is you're putting your plants directly over the top on a windowsill near a radiator. That is an incredibly hot area and you're basically drying out the root ball of your plant. So do not put them by a radiator if possible. Put them somewhere where it is light, perhaps away from the actual windowsill, but in a light area of the room, somewhere like that. That way they're not getting too much direct radiant heat on the base, and you will have much more success. Don't worry too much about extra lights and that sort of thing, unless it's a very dark area, in which case you could get a few LEDs which will help them. Don't overwater, and just don't get too much direct heat at the bottom of the pot. That is what is causing the problem. You're basically cooking the roots. Hi Rosie, what plants can be propagated at this time of the year? Okay, so at this time of the year we are doing a lot of root cuttings, and root cuttings can be taken of Anchusa, verbascum, oriental poppies, eryngiums, anemones, cranberry. All of those things you can take root cuttings from. They only need to be about 1 inch long, 2.5–3 centimeters long. Lay them flat, cover them over with something like cork, put them, they do need a little bit of basal heat, but it won't matter if you don't have that, and just put them into a greenhouse. That is absolutely fine. And then basal cuttings of things like hardy geraniums, geums, those are things that can be done at this time of the year as well. I hope that helps. Right, can you recommend a small tree with spring interest, vibrant fall colour and a spot that doesn't get a lot of light. So my favourite tree is Malus transitoria. It is lovely. You get beautiful spring flower on it. It's a lovely shape. You get super berries on it, and then it goes a lovely colour. Other than that, a lot of the small prunus are very good as well. Just look them up. But those are my suggestions for a small tree. Hi Rosie, I've got 4 young potted trees, a fig, an olive, an apple and an almond. They're in North Norfolk. I'm wondering if they'll be safe outside for the winter. I would say absolutely fine outside for the winter with those. The olive and the almond may need a little bit of extra help, and if they're quite young trees, then I would always give a little bit of help by putting bubble wrap around the outside of the pots, because that then just protects the pot and the root ball of the plant. Don't put it over the top because you need moisture to go in. Don't put it underneath because you need the moisture to drain out. So literally just around the edges of the pots. And then if it does get really cold, then a bit of horticultural fleece just draped over the top, pegged, normal clothes pegs, peg it to the top of the pot, leave it like that while it's really frosty, and then remove it on the days when it isn't, so that the top gets airflow around it. Do not leave horticultural fleece over the plants all the time. They need airflow around them. This one here is, I have a small hibiscus shrub. In the past 2 years it's produced buds, but they've always fallen off and I'm not getting flower on there. Should I move it? Maybe it's not getting enough sun. So hibiscus are plants that do like a lot of sun. I'm not sure which type you've got, but it doesn't really matter. They all would like a good amount of sun, a free draining site, but available moisture. So also asking when to move it. So when the plant is dormant, they've lost all their foliage, you can move it. So it can either be done in the autumn or the spring. Make sure that the hole that you dig out is a good size and that you put in a good amount of garden compost, organic matter into that hole, plant it, and then also I would suggest a feed of sulfate of potash. That will help the plant, and in the first year you will need to make sure that it gets watered, just to top up water, especially if we get dry weather, so that it doesn't dry out. It sounds as though your plant is under stress if it is losing its buds. Hello Rosie, please could you recommend a perennial for a north-facing wall? It gets evening sun in the summer. Currently have hydrangea, geranium roseanne in heuchera in pots. Something evergreen would be ideal, or with other seasonal interest in Surrey or Hampshire border. Well, I would suggest that you do something like hellebores. They are brilliant in that sort of area. Helleborus Woolburton's rosemary will be outstanding. You get superb winter foliage on that. It's going to start flowering early and you will really love it. Otherwise, perhaps think about a fern. Last one here is, hi Rosie, is it a good idea to wrap pots with bubble wrap during the winter in the UK, or is it unnecessary? The pots themselves are unlikely to crack. My question is whether it be good for the plants or is it a waste of time? I think the answer to that is no, it's not a waste of time. If we have a mild winter, you don't have a glass to be able to see what's going to come. And with a winter like we had last year here in the UK, bubble wrapping makes a good sense. Now, I would suggest bubble wrapping just on the outside. Do not do it over the top because they still need to get some moisture down into, and don't do it at the bottom because you need the drainage. But certainly bubble wrapping around the root ball of a plant is really quite a good idea. Those pots get very cold, they become like ice cubes. Anything you can do to help that and protect really does make a difference. And you may think, oh, I'm doing this, and then you don't get a cold weather. If it had been a cold snap and you lost something because it got frozen in its pot, you'd be really unhappy with yourself. So I would always take the precaution. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel.